Rain in Now that we've set up everything, it's finally time to start recording. There are three main things I want to talk about. When it's important to leave pauses so that our later editing workflow works smoothly, using punch and roll recording, and efficiently referring to your voice reference with minimal time expenditure. Let's start with the pauses. The editing workflow and shortcuts I'm going to be showing you are all predicated on it being much easier to automatically cut long pauses down than to increase the length of pauses. So there are three sets of pauses you must have for things to work properly later. First, we need to leave a 1 second gap at the start, which will be automatically cut to exactly half a second with our Chapter Maker script. Chapter 7. We also need to leave at least a 4 second pause at the end before we stop recording, and this will be automatically reduced to 3 seconds in the same single-click Chapter Maker script. I feared you might see something like that. After chapter titles and every time there's a scene change, we should leave a 3 or more second gap. A thoroughly discombobulated expedition. Kal Assa strode into the bustling tavern known as the Tavern Erupted into joyful chaos. Several hours, bruises, and many passionately argued apologies later, it's not going to be a one-click solution to reduce all of these down to the right length, but it is a one-click per pause solution, and we'll be reducing them to exactly 2.25 seconds. I know that's a very specific number, but I played around with it a lot, and I've listened to well over 1,000 audiobooks. And that's the length that provides the best balance between being long enough to be obvious and short enough to not be annoying. Next up, I want to talk about punch and roll. You may have heard about the clicker method, or even just recording your mistakes and editing them later. I have very strong opinions about punch and roll being one of the things that differentiates an amateur from a professional, and if you use it, stop. Everything from here on out takes it as said that you're using punch and roll. What may differ, however, is whether you use punch and roll without a pre-roll or with a pre-roll. So, no matter how experienced you are, mistakes are going to happen while recording, often multiple times in the same sentence because we tend to get tripped up by the same word each time. Xermlickworth. Xermlickworth? Xermlickworth. Xrim. 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 Xrimlickworth. 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 When mistakes happen, we have two options of where to record from. Firstly, we can restart from the beginning of the sentence, and until very, very recently, this is what I did when recording, but not, I will add, when editing. And this can be done with or without pre-roll.
Listen, you intern. Listen, you elongated artichoke.
He rasped irritably. Alternatively, we can continue from partway through the sentence, and for that, we have to use pre-roll. The robes beneath which muscles rippled alarmingly. That the village elders lost a bet. Or won, said Borgrim. This is now usually my preferred method, and the reason for the change was simple. I used to have a slight problem with my punched-in audio not being in perfect sync, but once I solved the problem, a software issue, it became possible, and frankly, I would have never been using the other option if punch and roll had been working perfectly for me. On that note, if you're new to narration, you might not know what a pre-roll is, so I apologise for not explaining it already. Pre-roll is the term for playing back X number of beats, measures, or seconds before recording resumes. We use it to match our tone and timing so that when we continue, it sounds like there is no break between the old and new recordings. Pre-roll is built into Reaper by default, and you turn it on and off with the toolbar button up here at the top left. When it's on, the button is highlighted, and when it's off, it's not. Setting up the duration is slightly less obvious. First, you go to the Options menu and open up the metronome/pre-roll settings. Then you change the number of measures down at the bottom. I'm honestly not sure exactly how long a measure is, but I have this set to 1, as you'll see, although I would recommend setting it to 2 when you start out. Importantly, make sure this setting to start the pre-roll at the start of a measure is unticked. If it is ticked, then your pre-roll length will vary slightly, which makes it extremely hard to develop the muscle memory and routine around getting the pre-roll timing right. I only recently discovered this tick box, and it made such a difference in how effective pre-roll was that I actually ended up speeding up my workflow by a few % using a shortcut I previously mentioned in the optional video on the quick keys. For those of you who didn't see that video, I've got a button that runs the following script extremely quickly. It checks whether pre-roll is on or off and remembers that. It stops recording, it turns pre-roll on, it jumps back 3 seconds, and it starts recording and simultaneously restores the pre-roll state to be on or off again as it was at the start. In practice, what this means is I make a mistake, I hit the button, I immediately reread the text starting about 5 seconds earlier, and it might take me a second to correctly synchronize my speaking with the recording, but that doesn't matter. So for the first second, I'm finding my place. In the second second, I'm saying exactly the same thing I'm hearing in my ears. And from the third second onwards, I'm recording new audio. If you were to play that back, it would all sound like it was one flawless recording, and it's all incredibly quick. It means every time I make a mistake, I lose about 2 seconds of time before I'm recording over the mistake, where previously it would take 10 seconds or more to get the cursor in the right place. The next thing I want to cover is when you need to refer to your voice reference mid-recording. Let's say that you're partway through a chapter and you come across a line read by a character who has previously not spoken, or perhaps even a character that spoke 2 lines 10 chapters ago. At that moment, your mind blanks on what the character is meant to sound like. Here's what you do. You start by hitting stop, then you click this toolbar button here, which looks like a hollow cursor, and that will save your edit cursor position. Then go to your marker list, click the name of the character to go to that section of the voice reference, press play, listen to the voice reference.
I am the guardian of whatever I'm guarding.
And hit stop again. Then click the filled in cursor, the next button, and you'll jump straight back to where you were. And you can hit record and continue from exactly where you stopped. First time we've come across grass, so let's re-listen.
Hello, I'm a goblin. Hello, I'm a goblin. And your credentials are?
This is the absolute fastest method for referring to the voice reference that I've been able to come up with, and it minimises the time you are out of the recording flow. That's actually it for recording. Part of the reason why using a non-destructive DAW is so good is that the actual process of recording is made as simple as possible, because editing is so much more powerful and smoother, especially when you can so easily undo any editing mistake you make. Next up, we'll be looking at how to create your chapter regions and rendering the files ready for proofing. Flocky now cinehillipilification. Flocky now cinehillipilification. Yeah, that'll do. I'll see you in the next video.